And we're back, guys. It's Warp Factor Fiction. And of course, if you guys checked out the first episode, you know why we're here. We're rewatching Star Trek, everything, animated series, the full series, live action, the movies, the whole 9 yards in chronological order.
Every step of the way. We are walking through time on a trek, if you will, a journey, going forth to see every piece of Star Trek from the beginning.
Absolutely, and I'm super excited because I've never done it this way, but also because there's a lot of things that I need to rewatch or some first watches for me, and I can't wait, and we're going to get into it, but we do need to make a little bit of an amendment. You might have seen the asterisk last episode when we were talking about a certain episode which was Breaking the Ice.
Yes.
And we referred to Paul's storyline in that having had more of a sexual assault connotation with the mind meld.
Yeah.
And we actually got it twisted. Actually, that episode is where she finds out that her marriage, or arranged marriage, is coming up and her time is limited. And she has to decide whether she wants to stay in that arranged marriage, which is very much part of her culture, or stay on Enterprise. It's a very good episode. It's very well played. Mm-hmm. I really like the Vulcan side of that. So we wanted to point that out. And actually, the episode we were referring to, which is Fusion, is in this later half. So we will be talking about it tonight.
Yep.
You heard us say some things, so we're going to kind of briefly touch down on it again. But yeah, I am excited.
Yes.
But we're here. It's the second half of season 1.
Part 2. Season 1.
So here we are. First episode, Shuttle Pod 1.
Which is a fantastic episode. So I love the phone booth episodes, the where you're a man in a box episodes. I always think they're fantastic, especially when there's hopelessness involved. Like, it sounds terrible, but I'm a big fan of that. That's why I like my sci-fi stories. I like my space stories because it's all out to kill you. So it's constantly a struggle of survival. Like, just living everyday life is survival. It's fantastic.
So would you say the universe is basically the Australia of the universe?
Oh yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, if you could name the universe, you should name it the Outback. I think that's pretty much what it is. So
going back on a walkabout, son.
You're not going to make it long. Sorry, you've got seconds. So it's really neat how they do this one, where unfortunately Trip and Malcolm Reed are stuck in one of the shuttle pods. Now, one thing we should mention:
Shuttle Pod 1, by the way.
Shuttle Pod 1, which this is very early on in Starfleet. They have a transporter. They usually use the transporter for like goods and cargo and stuff like that. And they've been notified at the beginning of the very episode in season 1, episode 1, that it's been allowed for biological transport. So you could use it for a person, but no one's really willing to try it yet. And it happens a couple times. They bring it up that they do have to use it.
I will say that one of the episodes that we talked about in the last session where we were going, which is where Archer frees the Suliban when he gets imprisoned with them, which is a great episode. That was, that's the season.
We're coming up on it.
I am losing my mind with the season, and I just watched the damn thing. All right, we're coming up on it. So we'll get to that part. But the reason being is they really get heavily into the transporter on there, and I like how they handle that. So we will get back to the transporter side.
So Shuttle Pod 1 is because everyone uses shuttle pods. Shuttle pods are the common way of traveling. So between planets in the ship, anywhere in the ship, you use a shuttle pod. So Shuttle Pod 1, Malcolm and Trip find themselves on the shuttle. They look down. They see what they see is debris of Enterprise.
Yeah.
And they just assume Enterprise has been destroyed.
And everyone they love and care about is now gone. They are stuck in the shuttle pod, and things are going haywire. So they're losing life support at certain times. Like the heating is going up, the cooling is going up. The whole thing really plays out. But the character building of both these guys in this episode was fantastic. Mm-hmm. To which, and Casey can attest to this because he actually listens to it, both the actors, Connor Trenier, my apologies, and Dominic Keating, both host a podcast called
Shuttle Pod 1. And it's great because in Shuttle Pod 1, they drink. They get drunk.
Yeah,
because obviously that's going to be, part of anything. Hey, we randomly find whiskey because why wouldn't you have whiskey? What a good way to say goodbye.
I know, right?
So they get drunk, and it's great because on their podcast they do that as well. They vibe a bit, so
and
it's
just
nice.
Talk and have a good time. Yeah. So I love that friendship aspect of it. So go check out their podcast as well. So watch along, so you get the episode by episode of Enterprise with them.
And they have constant special guest stars who are phenomenal. So
we are definitely excited.
Cool inside.
But watch ours too, because we do all of Star Trek.
But this Shuttle Pod 1 episode is fantastic for that. It harkens back for me to Apollo 13, which is one of my favorite moments in all of cinema. Yeah. You know, the way they have that feeling between Bill Paxton and, you know, you've got Tom Hanks in there and Kevin Bacon just doing a fantastic job acting their tails off. And we get a lot of that in Shuttle Pod 1. I think these two just really raise the bar. And for us, a great way to enter phase 2.
And because it's such an isolated episode and they're character building these two characters and what's going on, it's well done in the sense that, well, in many ways, but like they really play with the comedy versus the drama of dying. Like I really love that. At some points, they're kind of like Three Stooge in it, going against each other, like, you know, trying to fix things. And then you get to the point where they're just like, well, everything's gone. Enterprise is gone. We're so far from home. Maybe we should just let go. And that's a very heavy theme to play on.
Yeah, and it's definitely a matter of when do you accept your fate? When is your fate decided? Yeah. You know, they touch on that part even. Which is great because Dominic Keating is a little bit negative towards it. Like he's trying to accept and embrace moving on and it's death. And, you know, just it's mind boggling. It hurts. It's tough. And Trip is just trying to power through it, you know, and be like, just accept it and move on. And, you know, it's fun. It's the dynamic change between the two. And it really kind of serves to grow them throughout the remainder of the series as closer friends and with a great bond. So.
And it kind of plays into the next episode. Like we said, we went really in depth with it in the first part of this series. And so you've probably already heard a lot of what we're talking about in the asterisk time. But just to kind of touch down on this off of Shuttle Pod 1, you really see again T'Pol shine, Archer shine in a very dramatic way because of what happens to Paul, like we talked about.
In the episode Fusion is what we're discussing.
Yeah. So and you get the element of Vulcans who choose to have emotions and go through that, and that they feel they can balance it. So it's a good episode. Check it out. Of course, it's episode 17 in the series, and we were talking about Breaking the Ice earlier, so that's another good one. So
yeah. Really great episodes. And then we jump into Rogue Planet.
This was a fun one for me.
This episode, first of all, it's got one of those actors that I recognize from stuff. Okay. You know, I'm going to have to look him up real quick. I was not ready for that.
I think he's in a lot of things, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
I think it's Eric Peterpoint. Is that it?
I don't see. I can see his picture.
Yeah.
So the cool part about Rogue Planet is, so Reed finds a planet that's completely covered in dark. There's Yeah, he's in a ton of stuff. He does a really good job.
Keith Zarabatchka.
Good, don't even.
I don't. Keith Zarabatchka.
I don't want the Russians.
That's Keith Zarabatchka.
There you go.
Yeah. But he's a very recognizable guy.
We're gonna give you a dime for luck. Yeah, there you go. So the episode's very cool. Reed finding this planet that's completely covered in dark. They decide they have a hospitable atmosphere. Mm-hmm. They go down to check it out, you know, just do their tests, kind of learn about the planet. And they run into 3 hunters from another planet that come here every year on a hunt. And once they find out what they're hunting, it's a pretty big ordeal.
Yeah, it turns into quite the adventure. And it was a psychological creature, you know, engaging with Archer. And once again, we get more a little Archer-centric because we always got to have a big, strong Archer move. You know, after having Fusion, which was T'Pol heavy. And then we have, even before that, with Shuttle Pod 1. In Rogue Planet, we get back into Archer Strong. So he's taking up the mantle, is like, going to have to save these creatures and these beings. And he does.
Yeah, he does a good job.
What you expect. And it was, you know, it's wonderful. It's what I like. It's why Bakula really ruled this series the way he did. And did a great job.
I thought he was
wonderful. He is a fantastic driver.
Especially the first captain.
That's what he was. And that's what he portrays really well, is that combination of explorer but also adventurer. The fact that he is that maverick, he is going to go that extra level, but he's going to realize the regulations as he goes.
Yeah,
he's going to see the mistakes almost immediately, and then start looking at how to create a level of walls or, you know, rules that will help impede any more problems. And he works with T'Pol to that end a lot too.
I like that too, and you can tell he's building off of where he's going with it. Like he feels like he should get involved with everything. Like he's really, up until this point, he's really shoving his ideals on many other species.
Yeah.
And in a big way, but like, and from our standpoint, we're saying like, well, he's right though. Like that's human decency and this, that, and the other thing, the principles of which we want to build on. And but he goes about it in a way that's very human.
Yeah, it's got a swashbuckling-esque sort of
he definitely
piece
has
to
a
it.
cowboy side to him.
Yeah, so there's something that kind of makes it dangerous, and you can see where the Vulcans are uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, they're getting pissed with him as this.
Yeah, a lot, man. It's awesome. Yeah. So
because he interjects and he puts on, and the cool thing about it is, but like the more he goes on, the more like they show you in each episode, like the more you see he's realizing things.
Yeah.
So I dig that. There's change. There's an archetype to the character, and I like that.
There's a lot of growth, and they allow him to continue to grow, and really the entire crew grows, even when they get concerned or when they have problems or when there are struggles. They're all growing, and it's fantastic to watch. They do a really good job of that.
By the time you get to this part of the season, we're 18 episodes in. Where are you at with it in your mind? Like, how is this show still holding up for you?
So with most Star Trek series, I always take the first season and just have to kind of power through it. Kind of accept that there's going to be some gold in there. There's going to be a bunch of good character development, but seldom am I going to enjoy the entirety of the storyline. You know, it might look a little crummy. I don't enjoy the outfits. There's always bits and pieces that I'll pick apart. Okay. One of the great parts about this series particularly is they kind of come out the gate, and by the third or fourth episode, you're already in the crew. The crew development is strong. So you're already building in that avenue. Yeah. But you're also invested in Archer very early. Because it's a family affair, because he's following in his father's footsteps, because he's so committed to humanity. Okay. You link yourself to that humanity cause. Yeah. And you're like, you're goddamn right. I don't want anyone telling me that I can't go up to the stars. Like, that's a beautiful sentiment. And that's absolutely a human sentiment that any one of us are like, the moment you tell us we can't do it, all we want is to do it and do it better than you said we could. Okay. So it's wonderful. And I think that's a really cool way to get us locked in. Yep. And then, faith of the heart is questionable. Oh, God. I love it, but I only love it now. At the time this came out, I was not a fan.
And there was no skip button then. At least there's a skip button now.
No, sir. There was no skip button.
You watched.
There was, I'm going to get up and walk away and be in earshot so that when they go, and I know when the last chord hits, when the I've got when the echo hits, that's when you got to get back.
I don't know. I can't. Every time it comes on, like, I'm scrambling for the remote. Skip. All right, let's power through. Let's go on. So Acquisition's the next one. This is an interesting episode. Mm-hmm. The Ferengi pirates knock out the entire crew of Enterprise and sneak on board to, pillage, plunder, steal the whole thing. Just take whatever is not bolted down, and some of that is bolted down. So getting into this episode, seeing the Ferengi kind of take over, and with everybody passed out, it's very much set up in the beginning with Trip as a John McClane type character.
100%. Yep.
Because he is awake because he was in the decompression tank and he wasn't affected by everything.
By the gas that was put in by the Ferengi to knock out the entire crew, except Trip.
And then we get Trip in underwear for a long time, way longer than you would think UPN would have allowed back then. And he goes through and he's looking through. And the funny thing is, he passed like so many chances to put clothes on. Yeah. And he just didn't. He just refused.
You notice how the further this goes on, the fewer clothes. Like the longer the season goes, the fewer the clothes.
So I like the episode once it upped the ante by waking up Archer, waking up to Paul, and putting Archer in danger, where he has to kind of talk his way out. Like he's using the diplomatic sense, right? But conning the Ferengi to kind of get his way. Yeah. And I liked how they did that. And it was it's not our introduction to the Ferengi, of course, but it's a cool early look at the Ferengi.
Which is interesting because the Ferengi that we know that Jean-Luc Picard talks about in the Stargazer, he went up and had to fight. That was a battle against the Ferengi. Whereas the Ferengi they fight against in Enterprise D, in Next Gen, they're dullards. It might be problematic for a little bit, but overall they're probably going to blow them up. They're probably going to beat them. So the Ferengi slowly lose the power, and plus then you have to remember the Ferengi in DS9 now are way more infighting. There's a lot more different problems with them. They're struggling on the power surge.
Doesn't even feel like a military unit.
Yeah, they've kind of backed off from that. It's almost like now it's pillagers and pirates again, which the Ferengi are all about. It's the rules of acquisition. Yeah. So it is a really good look at the Ferengi for such an early time. I think that was really cool.
Yeah. And I like that aspect of it, and I did like how they came back to the pirate side of it. I mean, I was a little bugged by, this is a huge ship that has 86 different people on it, and these 3 Ferengi, like you could have been tripped and just been anywhere.
Yeah.
Like there was just no way. You know that shit better than anyone, and you're telling me like you had to go wake up people to help them. And I'm like, come on, man. But I get it. And
Ferengi are stronger than humans.
That's fair. That's fair. But even then, like, yeah, it threw me off a lot with that episode. I didn't love it because I thought they were going to do something cool in an element like a Die Hard.
Yeah.
And they changed it up. Once they upped the ante, I was like, and they added that level to Archer with it.
Yeah,
and bringing him into it, like having him captured and like having to talk his way out. Then that was like the interesting part of this. Mm-hmm. Everything else, I was just kind of like,
took a while to get there.
It was kind of funny that he woke up to Paul too, and then Paul was basically taking everybody out, and Trip was just like behind her.
Yeah,
it's like really, really, dude.
Vulcans are much stronger than humans.
I know, but like he had to drop on all of them. Like they didn't know he could. Whatever. Anyway, let's get to the next one. The next one is very more character centric, but
yes,
very subtle show. So Oasis is the next one. That's episode 20. Oasis finds the crew of Enterprise finding it. Well, they find out through means of trying to find certain. I think they were looking for energy balls or something like that. I forget exactly what it was they're trying to obtain.
Some kind of ore.
Yeah. And the person who's selling the ore said, if you need a lot of stuff, there's an abandoned ship on this planet. You should go check it out, and you can get a lot, like the lithium crystals, things like that. So they go to the planet, find there's no biosigns.
Nope.
They go down to check it out, and what do they find? Many, many biosigns. There's a lot of people there.
Lots of people. Surprise.
It seems that the crew of that ship has been hiding out there for a long time, just living their lives and kind of going on, and turned it into somewhat of an oasis.
It's beautiful.
So
of course, Starfleet's got to show up and be like, well, we want it.
And who plays the father?
Who is it?
It's Udo.
Oh, yeah. Rene Auberjonois.
Yeah.
Yes, Odo, our classic friend, Constable Odo from DS9. We get to see him also known as Father Mulcahy in MASH, the movie.
Oh, that's right. He was in MASH, the movie.
Yeah.
That threw me off. That threw me off a bit. I completely forgot he was in it.
Yeah, wonderful actor.
Oh.
Rest in peace, bud.
So, this episode was pretty good because you find out through lots of questioning because there's a father and daughter that they get close to during this time trip, especially with the daughter. And you find out that it's actually the only survivors are the father and the daughter. And they have projected with the holodeck holodeck technology all these other people around them so they don't feel alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty fascinating idea.
It was an interesting way to go about it. Really, the only thing I feel like you got out of this was like Trip's interaction of trying to insert his opinion more into it, and seeing the other side of Archer kind of like, we need to hold off on it. I don't know what we need to do here.
And I think that was a really cool part that Archer does do.
Yeah.
Is he does do that whole, I'm not sure here. Like, this is legitimately a weird one. It's so weird and off the mark. Like, what do I do? And I like that he kind of puts Trip. Is this the one where he hollers at Trip for?
No, that could happen in the second season. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to actually get to that one.
But you still start getting that kind of, you start to feel that bit of a rub there. There's that bit of a rub where stop questioning me in front of people all the time. That's really kind of a thing that starts to happen. And that's great that they do that, because it shows, look, there's a respect as a friend and as a colleague, but I'm still in charge. Like, I'm still your captain. Like, there's good moments when those happen.
And that's a very cool thing how they go about it. When we get to episode, which again will be season 2, will be next month. So make sure to check that out. It's a crazy dynamic that's really gets twisted, and I really like that too. Mm-hmm. That certain dynamics between everyone are just the bonds are getting closer. Mm-hmm. And I like how he's doing it.
Yep.
But we're actually kind of kicking in a high gear because now we're going on episode 21. We only have 5 more after this, and to kind of go through. We get this. It's called Detained, episode 21.
Detained.
Like I said, Archer and Mayweather are captured and taken prisoner on a planet. Wrongfully, there's just kind of a mix-up. So they go to this planet that is a detention center, as they call it, but it's really a prison. And it's a Suliban internment camp.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a big one because the Suliban are such a big villain to the series, especially in this first season, that Archer really gets to know them. Like, because there's the Cabal,
the Cabal, yeah.
The Cabal. I'll say how I want. No, I'm just kidding. The Cabal. No, I'm just kidding.
The Cabal.
The Cabal, and they're the ones that want the genetic enhancements from the future and things like that. And then the Suliban have a different people who are just like living every day.
Yeah, just folk living their lives,
stuck in internment camps.
Exactly, getting tossed in internment camps because they're being held responsible for the actions of what you find out are the other Suliban who are out there doing it. So, and because they can't tell which Suliban is doing it and which one isn't, really reminiscent of like 1941 United States in California.
The Japanese, of course.
Yeah. So
he gives a subtlety.
It's an interesting parallel that they throw out there, and I thought that was fascinating. It was really cool how they did that, because then it also puts us as Archer to be able to kind of follow the lesson and to learn through his eyes, to get to know your enemy and learn that you're not. It's not all Suliban are after you. Mm-hmm. It's not everyone who feels that way. And now you get to narrow down the group. So that's kind of what this episode was about, was narrowing down who the enemy is and getting to know them a little better.
Yeah, and the big thing is that the government that houses and the military unit that runs this internment camp for the Suliban, who captured Travis and Archer, realized quickly, like they talked to Enterprise and they're like, okay, listen, they have to go before the judge to source how it works. We're going to explain the situation in front of the judge, and they should be fine to be able to go home. And Dean Stockwell actually plays like the warden of the whole thing.
That's right, yeah.
Which is a cool connection because, of course, they were on Quantum Leap together.
Yep.
And so it adds that element. And I really liked how they played off of each other in the episode.
Yeah, it was really good.
And, a big thing for me with this was the ending. And of course, it adds the flavor to the entire rest of the season, is that Archer still having this dilemma, this crisis of conscience with a prime directive. There is no prime directive at this point, but like he mentions, like we need some sort of directive at some point.
Yeah, we need to put down some rule of how do we deal with what? Like, what is the most important thing when interacting with another species? Because at this point, it's like species number 15, 20. They're just racking them up rapidly. And they have no idea. They're just bumping into stuff and going, hey, what are you about?
Well,
and then they get shot at one point. They literally roll up and go, hey, how are you? And they get shot in the middle of space. It's the middle of an episode. It's awesome.
Yeah.
They're just cruising through, and they just get shot at, and then it goes and runs away. And they're like, what happened?
But at this point, he's not there yet, because he actually conducts a plan to completely free all the Suliban on this internment camp. And it's a big deal. It's a prison escape. And they go to in-depth planning it, and they get it done, and a lot escape. And now that plays into why he starts to feel that there needs to be a directive, because he screws up, and that's going to come up in a couple more episodes. This next episode, Vox Sola. Honestly, I mean, we can talk about it. It was a fine, so Star Trek has the trope of like the mystical goo or the orb or something shows up, creates havoc, maybe takes over somebody, possesses them, or is possessing different people.
Sometimes there's a magical virus that takes over, and the crew changes into something. So there's traditionally one or two of these. You call them, I guess, monster episodes.
I say
not monster of the week, but legitimate horror episodes.
Yeah,
where they try to make it almost like a horrifying thing. And in this one, that's what they do with spider webs.
Yeah, it was like a weird spider blob thing.
Blob webs.
And it had these webs, and it was like stealing. Actually, it's funny. The cadet in this episode is Angelica from Hamilton.
Get Out.
Yeah, and she's also in She-Hulk and such.
Yeah.
She did a fantastic job. She played Cadet Kelly in this episode, and it was. And she was one of the first ones to go, and she actually passed away in the episode. So Cadet Kelly doesn't come back anymore.
Well, R.I.P. Cadet Kelly.
Yes,
we're gonna have to start having memoriams on these things.
Oh my God! Every season,
every season we do an in memoriam. All right. Well, you said it, and we're gonna do it. Congratulations.
So with this episode, like they start taking them, they get the captain, they get Trip, and they're not dead. Cadet Kelly is, but they're somewhere not dead. They're kind of talking to each other, but it is sucking like a life force out of them. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those episodes, filler. Nothing major truly really happens. It's like when they had the jellyfish in space in Next Gen. It just kind of latched itself on the ship. That's what it is. Like, okay, we just have to figure out, get this thing off the ship.
Well, and that one was kind of fun because getting that one off, like there's always fun little things they do like that because you're bumping into stuff. You have no idea what it is. Like that's the neat part about this is so that's possible.
Yeah.
So sure, to us it looks ridiculous, and I will mock it all day, but it's plausible. It's possible. You know what I mean? That's kind of the fun part of Enterprise, especially in season 1, is anything is possible. We don't know what's out there.
There are 2 filler episodes in these last 6.
Yeah.
That weren't bad. They were fine. One of them has a little bit more to do with the storyline than this one did.
This one didn't have much going on.
I definitely get why they did it because there's some really heavy hitters in this. Like the next episode that we're getting to is Fallen Hero, where Valar, who is a Vulcan High Command's member, is now disgraced. She committed a crime and she is being transported by Enterprise to a determined camp where she's going to be taken
to another ship. She's being taken to another ship. She's taken to a Vulcan ship to go into custody. Yeah.
So they're gonna, they're gonna take her along, and as they go on, they start to learn more and more about like why she's there. And as it turns out, she's actually undercover. They want her to, go undercover with the Mazari.
The Mazari. So
Mazari?
The Mazar.
What is the Mazari?
Yeah, the Mazar. So anyway, she goes and she gets. They're under attack.
Yeah,
the Mazars start coming after him because she finds out that basically she was undercover to try to find out if this government was corrupt and who had corrupted it and who had taken over. So she finds out, and then obviously they know she knows, so they come after her.
Yeah,
and it's kind of fun. It's fun because we do get to see some really rad things happen in this. First of all, we get to see the phase cannons effectively taking out energy shields.
Yeah.
So we get that first real use, that great use. Then we also get Warp 5.
Yeah, they push it to the brink.
They push it to Warp 5, and we get to watch them pushing it, which adds that fun, cheesy action element. Yeah. And did a really good job of that and gave some pretty good thrilling moments there.
Kind of like shake the desks.
Yeah, man, they did some good desk shaking.
Yeah,
and then they kind of wrapped it up really well too, with showing how badass the Vulcans are.
Yeah.
When a Vulcan ship shows up, it's like, oh,
they're like legit. Like, yeah,
you can't mess with this ship.
But it also talking to her and learning from her because she is undercover at first and nobody knows on Enterprise. And once it comes about, like, so there's a dynamic at first. Where she's talking almost down about the Vulcan ideals,
but
she's still trying to maintain to Archer certain things so that way to help him and like legit help him. And then when she does come clean, it's kind of like it becomes more forefront, and I like how that dynamic went.
They did a really good job of her almost playing it off like she wasn't Vulcan.
Yeah,
like she was almost leaning towards, oh, humans are interesting. Like, okay, what are you about with your emotions? Okay, and then. When she's like, no, I'm Vulcan High Command. Yeah, there's no question. She's back in it. She's just right back to it. So
right back.
It was very well done, very well acted.
And yeah, it's a good episode overall. I say, and in my opinion, one of the best episodes of the season. Now,
Fiona LaFlanagan plays that. She's fantastic, crushes it. Now we get to my favorite episode of the season. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you decide to give me as a level of respect, because quite frankly, this is probably one of the lower rated episodes of this filler. It's a filler.
It's not a filler because of what they're there for.
Okay.
It's very integral to the entire.
Fair. So they're exploration, right? This is a vehicle of exploration in Enterprise. So we get to Desert Crossing is our next episode. This is episode 24 because seasons used to go this long.
It really did.
That's all of these seasons do. So we get to some pretty cool story here. First of all, out the gate, we get Clancy Brown.
Yes.
His shuttle's about to explode. His ship's all banged up, so they save him. They rescue him, and it's Clancy Brown.
He's just being Clancy Brown.
She's the most Clancy Brown guy who could Clancy Brown.
Come down and have dinner with me. We'll have drinks.
Yeah, just slapping everyone on the back. Like, thank you. Yes, excellent job.
He's like a big ogreish guy in a bar who's just like, hey, let's be friends. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah. What are you gonna say? No, that guy's awesome. I'm gonna hang out with that guy.
Seems like a good guy.
Seems like a great guy. So you get down there on the planet because, of course, in exploration, they want to meet another culture. This is fantastic. So they get down there and find out that they're terrorists. And the government is trying to attack them and locate them. So uses them and just blows up the whole city. The place where these terrorists are living, their little commune. And Archer and Trip are now stuck in the desert trying to travel and find a way to communicate back to Enterprise.
Yep, and get out of there because they're also wanted by the government because they think they're in cahoots with the terrorists.
Yep.
But here's where the important part comes back in because by the time they get back around, they do meet up with Clancy Brown's character in the episode. And the reason he tricked them to come there was because now there is tale of the great warrior Archer all in this galaxy, in this sector, that is really reverberating. And he was like, you can help me because I heard tales of you being a great warrior who can
freeze the people,
strategize everybody, because he helped release Suliban and get them out of that internment camp. And that's where the big thing comes into play, which we're going to talk about in this week's episode of Impulse Run, which is our short mini show that's on YouTube. You can check out. But is the Prime Directive and the need for it? It's now starting to linger even harder, seeing as how he got pulled in and duped to do something.
Exactly. And this is something that consistently will grow because the idea of a captain being known throughout the galaxy or some portion of this sector of space to this degree is not good. No. It's not a good thing. It's not what you need out there. When you're just exploring, you shouldn't be like, changing altering the course of a society. Probably not best, even though they constantly do, and that's what all these shows are about. So I love that they bring this up, and yet it's what they do. So it's kind of fun that the entire point of the Prime Directive is there is no Prime Directive.
Yeah, and they're really showing that one.
It's the golden scroll from Kung Fu Panda. The secret is there is no secret. And they run with it. It's kind of really fun that they do that.
Yeah, and I like that element of it. It gave you a fun adventurous type episode, but definitely just capped it into everything else, especially considering we only have 2 episodes left in the season. And episode 25, the next one is 2 days and 2 nights.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Before we're done with Desert Crossing,
I know you guys.
I'm not getting off of Desert Crossing yet because when Clancy Brown takes him down to the planet to feast, right? They start a game. And while they're playing this game, it is freaking lacrosse. It is space lacrosse with glowy balls and a small target, no goalie, which sad face. I was a goalie. But that's amazing. That makes me so happy that they have space lacrosse finally. And the fact that Archer would dare compare it to water polo.
Not even compare it to water polo, but say this is just like water polo. And you're from Earth.
Lacrosse exists. Did lacrosse not make it?
Why would you think that first? I don't care if you played water polo.
Was lacrosse so regional that World War III wiped out lacrosse? Is that what happened? That makes me very sad.
I'm going to save our final thing for the end after we get to it, what I'm going to say about this season.
Okay.
Because we have a few things we're going to talk about, kind of recap things and what we liked, what we didn't like. But let's get through this one. Yes. So 2 days, 2 nights. Half the ship's on vacation because, of course, you always have to have a reserve team. They're going down to Risa now. You might know that from other Star Trek shows, but I don't want to spoil anything for you if you don't.
Pleasure Planet.
Pleasure Planet. That's the only thing we'll say, and it means pleasure.
Yeah.
Anything that
if you want to read at the beach, it's going to be the best reading and the best beach you've ever been to. Like that's
okay. We're ruining it for you now because we love it. We want to go to Risa.
Yeah, I want to go to Risa,
and it's definitely an interesting one because we never
have a Horgon.
Jesus, we never really got a good look at Risa from a vacation standpoint because again, with the episode with Vosh and
Picard
that was very much adventurous. You didn't see much, and others that kind of touched on it was very subtle.
Riker was always dressed real funky there.
He really did. He really was. I love it.
Was he just? Did you notice that Riker wasn't really allowed down there often?
Yeah, I don't blame them. It's like, listen, you gotta leave that guy home. So
get a little hornball on Ryza, not a good idea.
Can we take a break? Can we put a Ryza?
Or he doesn't go because he's like, I got kids down there. I can't be going to Ryza.
Oh my god! Yeah, he just runs. It's like that other planet where it became an alien, and then like they just want it all to. We'll get there when we get to the next. We have lots of stuff for that one, but you can see. So with this one, Hoshi, she is going down there to learn dialects, and because there's all amalgamation of different species there, so she wants to pick up different dialects and learn. She meets a nice young man from Ryza.
Yes, a young man who's willing to discuss different dialects and conversation styles with her using his tongue. He's a very cunning linguist.
And she's into it.
Oh, yeah, she digs it.
Yeah.
She's down. She's receptive to what he's saying.
Yeah. So it's a very fun episode for Hoshi.
A lot of oral action.
Yeah. Now, because I want to move to Archer next in this episode, because he had very straightforward. He saw a very attractive woman in the room next to him. They both had the dogs there.
Yeah, their dogs all played together.
Yeah. Well, Porthos looked like he was going to kick that dog's butt.
Yeah, I mean, Porthos brutal. He don't mess around.
I love it. So they start like kind of going out, having a good time with each other, and then you find out that she is a part of a faction that is trying to take out Suliban and needs information about him, trying to talk to Archer about it and get that info. And Archer's like, I don't know anything.
And she's the very same species that interred him in that camp along with all the other Suliban. So she was like sent to kind of track him down and follow him. So
trying to get it out another way.
Yeah, it was a wild, messed up episode. And I do feel bad for him in the end because it's like, he didn't get to bang anything. He was on Ryza and he barely got to get drunk.
No, that's because he was going to read the whole time anyway.
With the Ryza, he didn't get to bang nothing. Come on now.
Oh, God.
What's the point?
All right. This is a PG show.
Well, and then who else do you have? But don't forget Malcolm and
Trip. I knew this was going to be the part I was going to be like, stop saying bang for him. Get to this one because this is the dirty one.
It is.
You have Trip and, of course, Reed down there and dressed in their best Miami Vice.
Oh my gosh.
Suits.
I don't know if Miami Vice spacesuits are going to remain in the future, but this gave me hope. This makes me believe.
They were dressed exactly alike.
Yeah, exactly, which means my style will proliferate to the world in the future due to the past. Because art imitating life, imitating art.
Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. So watching them, it's funny because they didn't even get into interspecies relations because that's not a thing yet here.
Nope.
It doesn't exist. And humans can't. Well, it's not a thing with humans because there's still people are learning more about them and getting used to them, and they're putting themselves in the forefront now. So they get into that in the second season. They really discuss that about the future and where this could go because it's touched down on. And the reason I bring that up is because nobody told the writer in this episode because all they were trying to do was find girls and hook up.
Bang. That was like the whole purpose. On the shuttle pod ride down, they're talking about banging. When they actually get down there, they're talking about banging. Like when they actually, it's pretty rough. This was kind of a boring episode from their perspective. And when they get tied up, because, they eventually get hogtied because they get sucked into some trap following some beautiful women and they get mugged. And it's like, it's what you get. Yeah. You literally walked around thinking with your penis the entire time.
You're creepy.
You're creepy. It was creepy.
So, all right. Let's move on.
But the Hoshi part was dope. Like seriously, that was awesome. That was like a how Stella got her group back storyline. It was kind of pretty.
Weirdly enough, the Hoshi was the best storyline.
It really was.
The most simple of all of them.
Yep.
But it was fun to see Ryza from that point.
And it was also funny because I kept waiting for the twist with the Hoshi storyline, and it never came. It was just an honest storyline. I was like, "Oh, it was really nice."
It was fun and good for Hoshi because I think she found that appreciation because now there was an interspecies entanglement, and she got into it. And I think when she came away from that, you could see she's like embracing being out there more.
Yes, exactly. It opened her up for this, and in Shockwave we see that.
Yes.
Which unfortunately, though, it turns tragic rapidly.
Shockwave Part 1, which is the season finale of Season 1, the last episode we're going to talk to. We ain't going to talk about Part 2 until we get there next month.
Nope.
So This time around, the Enterprise discovers a mining colony of paragons. That's what they're called. The crew gets an invitation for a meeting on the surface, and a shuttle pod tries to break through the atmosphere. All of a sudden, just under a shut. Oh, that's right. So when they went down, because the air was different down there, they had to have certain things shut off.
So they had to have their plasma vents closed.
Well, they had more than that though, because they checked everything.
Yeah, because if the plasma ducts had remained opened during the discharge period, that's enough to ignite like basically everything around them. Yeah. So all they have to do is just close it, and then just make sure it's closed and set and sealed. And when they come down, no problem, no fuss, no muss. Well, that's what they had to check on, and that's why Malcolm was like, "I did it." Which, of course, in that future, you're going to be able to see in the logs if it was done or not. So clearly, he did it. Now, I struggle with this episode because...
Well, we should tell them, because we didn't tell them that they killed 3,600 people.
So 3,600 people die as a result of what they believe is they're igniting the atmosphere and wiping out the colony.
Yeah. It's a big deal, and this leads into a huge thing where now there's the dilemma for Archer. Do I take credit for this? Do we figure this out? What happens? He's being recalled. And finally we get to that point where they do call him and say, your trip is canceled. Get back here. We're not going to be allowed to do it for another 10 or 10.
Yeah, the Vulcans were ready to shut it down. They had Starfleet pretty much on edge, saying, "Nope, we're done until we work out whatever the safety protocol issue is." But the problem is, once you go through it, you can see if the safety protocol was followed. Once you see that, it's an investigation of what's really happening.
Yeah, which they do themselves.
Yes, and they finally do kind of turn themselves around. I like that Archer struggles with this here. Yeah. I think Bakula really crushes that self-pity party thing.
Yeah.
And I love that T'Pol has that moment with him where she tries to cheer him up.
Yep.
And he's like, this has got to be the first time in the history of the universe that a Vulcan tries to cheer up a human. And it was really nice. It was great because that's when you see that T'Pol is ingratiated herself and allowed herself to trust and be part of this crew. Yeah. And really, really likes Jonathan Archer. Like is in awe of him and respecting him.
Yeah,
after
he basically be out there, and that comes a big thing. Yeah.
Yep, it absolutely does. So Shockwave has done really well because it's a lot of time spent on the actors, on what their dilemmas would be, how they're going to potentially deal with this news that Starfleet's done.
Yeah, and they do eventually find out and go about looking for the footage or whatever evidence they can get to give to them. They get it. They find out they're being attacked by the Suliban, who are trying to stop them, who are the ones, in fact, that set this up, they find, through their investigation to actually cause and ignite the atmosphere. It wasn't them at all. They did everything
from the future.
From the future.
So these are the temporal Cold War. We're back, baby. That's right. Just when you thought we were out, we're going to pull you back in.
Well, and what was it? What did we say that last episode? It was like episode 8.
Yeah,
so
somewhere
we're back
at
in the season finale.
So... I have to say that now that we bring it back around, this is the first time that I finally see this temporal Cold War, and I'm excited about it. Shockwave Part 1 was able to just give me enough of a flavor to go, okay, you got me more now. Because before I was against it. I was like, just don't show it to me. I don't want to see it. But now it's much better.
Once we got into it, it was nice to see more of it and kind of understand it a little bit better. So in the episode, they're racing home to clear their names while the Suliban are attacking them, trying to get the footage or even just take them out. And Archer disappears. They want Archer bad because they want to go after him, and he just disappears. And in reality, he gets stuck in the future, way in the future, where the temporal Cold War is actually happening.
Boom.
And they find out that now that he has been taken out of his time, it has created a future where Federation doesn't exist, nothing exists, nothing ever went forward. So Archer is integral. So,
like, he is the guy, focal point. So, and that is where we get to finish. And then get, I always want the voice of Majel Barrett to say, to be continued. Like that. And then you get the just blue letters on the black screen, to be continued.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this as we go on. First, let's go back to the favorite characters because we did the first episode.
Yes.
What were your top 3?
Yes.
Starting with 3.
Yeah.
And then we did the same for me. I want to see if ours are the same this time around.
Okay. Well, initially I was Hoshi, T'Pol, Archer.
Yes.
So at this point now, I've become Trip.
Okay.
I'm definitely Trip, Archer,
And T'Pol?
And T'Pol.
And T'Pol. Very cool.
T'Pol is my number one at this point because I am digging the fact that she, unlike Spock, who watching his journey is much more the human Vulcan within him. He is both. He is one half of each.
Yeah.
T'Pol is a full Vulcan who is embracing this entirely new culture.
Yeah.
And is going from a human that she could never respect a human in her life to much less revering one, to much less wanting the acceptance of one.
Yeah.
And we start to see that growth of like, wow, that's so meaningful to her because he respects her so much. And we see that, and because he defends her throughout this.
Yep.
Archer is still up there, obviously, because it's his show. I mean, we ain't
so
driving nowhere
far,
without
him. Going off that list. Like
Yeah.
for me, it's the same. It's Trip jumps on. Phlox almost took Trip out, but Trip has some good episodes in this. And I really like where his character arc is going.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it's Archer. And then I would go to Paul, whereas it was flipped in the first half of the season. So that goes to show you like how the characters evolve in fascinating ways. Because I said, excuse me, I said Travis Mayweather in the first one as my third.
Mm-hmm.
And he could come back on.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. That's kind of the funny part about this is at this point we don't get as much Phlox. This is where we start to get the 5-minute Phloxes. Where he's on for 5 minutes. He got all of his stuff early on. He gets stuff during peacetime. So
well, in the second season, he shines bright.
He does. No, he comes around. Absolutely, he has moments. But they've kind of buried them a little more because we've gotten a lot more of the Archer to Paul.
That's true.
And there's a reason for it, and it's a great reason. I think it's wonderful. I love the Malcolm stuff. We start getting more Malcolm, but a little less. He turns into 5-minute Malcolm for a few episodes.
I do. The only thing I'll say about the T'Pol Archer relationship, it seems like in season 1 they had a love interest angle that they wanted to start pushing at some point, and they were building toward that. And I really think that at certain times in certain episodes they're like unsure if they wanted to continue, and then maybe another they'd like, okay, well let's just keep it open as an option. And like I just saw that in the writing, and it was kind of choppy in that sense. But when it was really focused in on her admiration of him, I liked it, and I liked that dynamic.
Yeah.
It was very few and far between those little like love interest things. Those little bites came in,
which I'm really glad they skated past them.
Yes.
I'm really glad they continued past them and allowed that questionability of is this love to more of a, oh no, this is an admiration. This is a respect. This is a, oh wow, you're human. How can you do these things? How can you possibly act like that? She's seeing everything logically. So when he's coming at it with a better answer that derives a better result, you can't argue it, So I think that alone has been mind-boggling to her, and it's happened multiple times. So it's really fun to see.
To kind of close out on this and kind of go on to the for the next episode and save something for that. But in this season, I want to know like which other species that they met. Doesn't have to be a villain species or a protagonist or an antagonist. It could be just somebody they meet. Who was your favorite species that was introduced? Not ones that existed like Vulcans or Klingons or Andorians, but were introduced in this first season.
Ooh. The Tandalarians, the ones who are like prisoners of imprisoning the Suliban.
Yeah.
We're going after them. I kind of dug that. I like that there's just they're not a bad species. You know what I'm saying? They're not the bad guys.
To be. It doesn't seem like it.
But also they're just kind of jerks.
They are.
And it's what happens when the jerks take over. So it's kind of fun to watch that in a Star Trek show to see, well, here's the jerk civilization.
But even the jerk side, you get that sympathy of like, we were afraid, and it's not right because again, like we go
absolutely
back to the
not.
Japanese internment plans, it's not right.
Absolutely not right.
And that's why I like Archer's stance on it against them and pushing back and saying this is wrong, regardless if you're afraid or not. He was like that. This episode for me is like, when you watch Captain America Winter Soldier and he's talking to Nick Fury and like he's really giving him the, I know you're saying the world is a different place, scarier place, but like you're perpetuating fear.
Yeah, precisely.
You're pushing. You're not trying to inspire hope or do good.
Things are getting scary. Yeah.
And I like that because that's what Archer put into it. So like you feel for the Suliban in this episode, the Tandarians. You feel for them too because they're really giving both sides of it. But the fact that one's an aggressor in this scenario and the other one's not, Because we're automatically, when you've introduced this Suliban and all these other episodes before, you get to this point where in this one you automatically hear that they're being, and you're like, good, okay, they're catching them. But then when you hear the stories, and that's what I love about it, they added the stories. You actually feel sympathy for both.
Yep.
But Archer's the perpetuating force of saying, you're wrong. You know, you're doing this out of fear and you shouldn't be doing it. And then to help the Suliban took it to a different level that I really just enjoyed about
it was fantastic. And that's kind of why I like that race, because there are a race of cowards who
Yes.
cause those kind of problems, who create those issues, where the fear just overtakes in a society. And we get to see that. And it's a wonderful mirror. So I love when there's a good mirror episode of like an alien race that kind
not
of
an
shows.
actual mirror episode.
No, that's terrifying. Not mirror. No, not the other universe. When there's something that mirrors society and what's going on and the way we can see ourselves if we go too far with something. And I think they're a good mirror to have. That's Tandarans are good, right? You know, it's important to be mindful of that.
And to say mirror again and make it lose all its meaning.
Mirror.
The one thing I like about this show in this first season is a lot of the topics they handle are things that the United States has done throughout time to other people, and they turn it on its head. And considering the theme of this is throughout the years we built to get out here and travel through space, and you see that in the theme song, the opening credits. And so I like that they built that up as like, now we're going to talk about the topics as we go on.
And they do, because they show almost every civilization, everything they've had to fight against. Yeah. You know, the Rogue One, well, we're going to wipe out Rogue Planet, where they're like, we're just going to wipe out this society. Yeah. We don't know what they are. We just know we can kill them. And they don't know they're sentient beings. You know, they don't understand that. They think it's just an animal. Well, that's still not cool. It's not kill white rhinos. Guess what? Too late. You know, stuff like that. Like that's a beautiful thing that Enterprise does, that Star Trek has always done. And that's one of the reasons I love Star Trek, because they deal with actual social issues from such an abstract but very real point of view.
You know what I like about it too, talking about it in this instance, is that everybody on this show throughout, like even when Trip like yells at the Vulcan, stuff like that, it's everything we feel. Every aspect that they go through during this first season, they're right, because they are humans and they've done it. And that's the point. They're saying, like, we've done this. Yeah,
it's a whole society. We've walked through this.
So we're telling you that you're wrong because we know it. We've been there. And that's sort of the feel of the argument. But the cool thing about it is every one of them is right in their moral code. But that leads and it shows you going on that they're going to be wrong at times.
Exactly. There are going to be problems, and there are going to be points where you stick your nose in where you shouldn't.
Yeah. Like
maybe going too deep, maybe causing a problem, maybe getting your name out over half a sector. You know, it's kind of problematic.
And absolutely. And even though he was right, he messed with things he shouldn't have messed with. And now he even thinks there should be a directive.
Yep.
So going forward in that sense, we love doing this. Thank you for joining us for the first season here in March. Please watch. Let us know any questions you have for us. Sound off right here on the Patreon, and we will try and answer them for you. Also, because we do episodes coming up, we can answer them on the next episode. So we're happy to do that, and we can keep going. Keep watching Enterprise. Join us for this very long journey that we're boldly going on.
Boldly.
And having a good time doing it. So thank you guys, and we really appreciate watching Warp Factor Fiction. Check out all of our other shows, The Scene Snobs and more, over on the channel. We appreciate you. We love you. And Casey.
Until next time, my friends, make sure to take care of yourself.